Council Chambers 14050 Olympic Drive, Clearlake, California at 6 p.m.
Mayor, can you check your mic, please?
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Kramer,
Here.
Councilmember Overton,
Here.
Councilmember Claffey,
Here.
Vice Mayor Purdock,
Here.
Mayor Slutin.
Here. Pledge allegiance to the flag.
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Want to keep standing, Mr. Purdock again?
Sure.
Call on you again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If you would, please bow your head and join me in prayer. Our Father in heaven, the great creator of everything we know and love, we ask for your blessing tonight in this place, in these halls, that your spirit would be with us to guide and lead us to do the good work for the city of Clear Lake and for its citizens and guests. Thank you. We ask a special blessing for those who are in service, both first responders in our health care field and those just trying to make ends meet in this time. Father, we thank you for those blessings, and we thank you for those we don't even know we've received. We give this up to you with all our love and respect. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right. Do we have any changes to the agenda, Mr. Flora?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We would go ahead and ask that we pull item 7 and 8 from they're on the consent agenda because they're not ready for action tonight.
All right. Can I have a motion to
Make a
accept?
motion to accept the agenda with the adjusted removals.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Vice Mayor Purdock and a second by Councilman Kramer. We'll go to our electronic voting. It's not refreshing. All right, we can do a voice call. Oh, here it goes.
Director.
Mine doesn't either.
No, wrong one now.
Doesn't seem to work. Voice call, voice all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We go to presentations. Presentation of October adoptable dogs. Mr. Who is taking this item? Look like Charmaine is. Hi, Charmaine.
Tonight we have 2 dogs to present. Our first dog is Parker, presented by the
Can you
police
talk,
chief.
see if the microphone's on, because
It is. I can
Oh.
hear her.
Oh, wow, look at a big dog.
Okay, so this is Parker. And the police chief is actually fostering him, leading by example, as always. Parker's about 1.5 years old. Came in as a stray. He's super sweet.
Chief.
Okay, that's how he likes you.
Oh,
Yeah.
3 dogs, bunch of kids.
Just got neutered and recovering, nicely at the chief's house. He's a little reserved at first, just, needs some training and socialization, but all in all, he's a nice boy. He just met the next dog up and they had a nice interaction. Yeah. So yeah, if you're looking for a nice Rottweiler, Parker's your boy.
How old is he again?
About a 1.5 years,
Mhm.
1.5 years. He's young,
Done growing,
probably. He'll fill out a little bit, but we think so.
about as big as he's gonna get. Yep.
Beautiful dog.
So yeah, neutered, microchipped, vaccinated, the works. Good
I don't know,
boy.
chief. I think he's growing on you.
Maybe he should be the station dog. I don't know, look at how good he
Oh, there you
is.
go. All right.
Okay, and next up, a trick or treating favorite. This is Milk Dud.
Milk dud.
Well, good.
And Alyssa, I'm sorry.
His name is Milk Dud.
We named him Milk Good, yeah. It's Halloween theme. Hi. So Milk Dud is
Little Dud.
approximately 10 to 12 weeks old. Also came in as a stray. He is pretty much potty trained. We were really surprised. Crate trained too, but he's okay at the shelter overnight, and doesn't, make a mess in his kennel. We put him out and he goes to the bathroom, so somebody worked with him at some point. Not neutered yet, but he will be soon. He is old enough for it, definitely. And all the puppy stuff, puppy teeth, puppy manners. But he's sweet, and he liked Parker. So. That's it, Milk Dud.
So there's the only 2 dogs we have at the shelter?
No. Did you want us to bring them all?
That'd be cool.
Just close the doors and just let them run around?
There you go. We'll have the next city council meeting at shelter.
Could do that. We'll dress
No,
them all up.
how are things at the shelter as well?
They're going.
Yeah.
I'll do the stats.
Okay.
And then we have a couple other things.
I didn't know if you're going to give a report tonight or not.
Yes, but I have to do this to read. Okay, so
Okay.
then we have a couple other things.
I didn't know if you're going to give a report tonight or not.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, so this is from January 1st to now. Owner guardian surrenders, we've had 56. Seized custody, 168. Strays picked up, 407. Wildlife, 48. Adoptions, 34. Return to owners, 95. Transfers to rescues and other agencies, like including the wildlife, 267. Euthanasias are still at 5. And that's about it for that. Wildlife released 3. So a couple new categories, I guess.
But what is wildlife relief means?
Wildlife released, where they maybe were just in a little situation and got rescued and then
Okay.
set off and safe. Yeah.
Okay.
And then something new is calls for service. In case you were wondering how many calls came through and for what. So cruelty and neglect calls, 17. Animal bites or dangerous dogs, 100. Barking complaints or enforcement issues, 161. Patrol, things that the officers notice while they're just driving around, 50. Phone call requests, 99. People have questions, reporting things. Police assist, 28. At-large strays, 648. Transporting animals to other areas, 18. Welfare checks, 106. And then wildlife calls, 76.
Is this for the year?
Yes, from
Okay.
January.
Is there a
What's
way
for
we
you?
can get a report for
Well,
like?
actually, this might
just
be just for
Just the month?
October. Yeah, it says on here, calls for
Does
service
it show on
October.
there what the euthanasia rate is for the
5
five
total
numbers,
from the
but 5
beginning of the
the
year.
percentage?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh,
so-
we were
so-
at still at 99%.
So that's what's confusing.
release.
One is saying 5 total for the year. The report is, so something's not coinciding here. It's either for the year or it's for the month.
Well, the at call, the new category for calls for service was just for the month.
Just for the month. Okay,
But,
that's what I'm trying to get. So, okay.
And our live release rate is still at 99%. So there's a couple new things are new Facebook pages. So we have our own North Bay Animal Services Clearlake page. And you can check that out for, stories like rescues or injured animals, that we want to let the public know about. And then there's also North Bay Animal Services Lost and Found Pets for Clearlake. And so that's where we're going to post animals that come into the shelter, where we used to post it on Clearlake Animal Control Facebook page. If you just search those, they should come right up. Yes, yeah, but they are also, still on the North Bay Animal Services website. We had a dog, Liberty, that came into the shelter, transferred to North Bay. She was just adopted yesterday. And currently we have 30 dogs available for adoption
30.
at the shelter, yeah, that are vetted and ready to go.
Is that a lot more than usual, or is that about the going rate?
It's probably the going rate.
Okay.
What's your population for dogs at the shelter?
Right now, we have 70.
Excuse me?
70.
Zero.
70. Yeah,
That seems to be a little over what we thought we were going to have there.
yeah. There is, you know,
Is there a plan in place that we can adopt those out, maybe take them to a different shelter? Or wasn't that part of the contract?
I'm not sure about that specifically. But it's kind of a nationwide crisis, I guess, if you
Uh-huh.
want to call it. Shelters everywhere are struggling to get dogs out, especially to rescues, you know, organizations that normally helped us are struggling also.
Okay.
So, you know, if you're
Any
asking me
thought on why?
personally, I feel like, you know, community needs to step up and try to help us with fostering and adopting, long-term fostering, you know, something.
Any thought on why the increase?
There's
We-
data
lack
that
of-
I've read. A lot of it has to do with the recession, housing, you know, people just can't afford their animals
Afforded a dog,
anymore,
yeah.
having to move somewhere where they can't have them. You know, people,
Okay.
and just in Clear Lake in general, people die, people go to jail. We
Wait,
end up with
what?
all those.
Okay.
I mean, it's the normal
Yes,
stuff on
Chief.
top of the other stuff.
Yeah, I may, Thank you. If I may, it's definitely,
please.
we have a lot more dogs there than what we would like to have. And as Charmaine mentioned, there's challenges with other rescues. There's other shelters that have stopped intake. You know, you're probably aware the county, because of some other resources, has stopped providing services. North Bay Animal Services in particular, our folks out there are still trying to make things work. But we really do need people to step up and adopt where they can. Responsible pet ownership also. And if people need resources with helping to get spay or neuter, is reach out to North Bay. They can point them in the right direction. Oftentimes there's a lot of resources that people will just ask, as opposed to waiting and then showing up to the kennel with a bunch of puppies or whatnot. So any way that people can help, we have reached out to the director for North Bay and, you know, again, trying to continue to engage, because we can't sustain having it that full there. It's really hard on them to be able to take care of all the dogs, exercise them, and so forth. So it's definitely a challenge. And from the staff side, we'll continue, even though it is contracted out, to try to support them in whatever way possible as far as getting the word out and that sort of thing. But we definitely, you may recall when we built the facility, you know, we didn't build it for 70 something
Right.
dogs. So, but good news, Parker, we have an adoptee or adopter. Our city clerk is going to adopt Parker. We've been trying to work on something, and apparently the details were worked out. So subject to North Bay's approval, Parker will have a forever home. So thank you.
That's good. Chief, I have a
Excellent.
follow-up question.
Yeah.
With the, I'm surprised to learn that the shelter is so well populated. Do we have room if we have any aggressive animals that need to come in?
So I think the staff, you know, oh, somebody's getting upset, does a good job of making, do you want to say something? Of making
think he likes
space
it.
available, but it certainly is a concern that we have, because we do, you know, as a public shelter, we do need to make sure that we have a place to take aggressive animals and so forth. So I wouldn't be surprised, you know, ultimately it's North Bay's call, but you know, in the interim, there may have to be some restrictions on some stray dogs and so forth that aren't causing a risk. But hopefully we can get that down to a manageable level. Obviously it comes and goes, but it's definitely a concern, I think, for all of us, and something that we're going to have to continue to engage with them on.
Yeah, just concerned about public safety.
Absolutely.
So I assume that you're using then the courtyard building that where there are cages and to take the.
Yeah, and they're having to use the inside of the old, the Public Works warehouse, which, as you may recall, wasn't an ideal space. So it's definitely something I think we all need to keep a close eye on and try to support North Bay in whatever way possible.
Great.
City clerk might be bringing Parker.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Charmaine. All right, we'll move on to presentation by the Health and Social Policy Institute on second and third hand smoke and aerosol exposure and the health effects on community members.
That a long enough title?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, you need to step over the microphone.
These on. So, good evening to the council and appreciate the opportunity to be able to present. My name is Gina Lyle Griffin. I'm the project liaison for the Health and Social Policy Institute, and the program is called Communities Addressing Nicotine. Project is funded by the state of California tobacco tax of 2016, known as Proposition 56. This program operates under the California Tobacco Control Program, which is a division of the California Department of Public Health. Had to get that all out there. I'm going to be talking, of course, as it says, about secondhand and thirdhand smoke and aerosol exposure and health effects for the community. So we all know about secondhand cigarette smoke, and most of us are aware of its effects. More is now known about secondhand aerosol and cannabis. You have a packet, and so I have your handouts in order. So the first one I'd like you to look at, if you could, is the one that says tobacco and marijuana secondhand smoke. What's the concern? It should be the first one on the packet. First thing I want to say is, how is smoking defined in California smoke-free laws? California law defines smoking as inhaling, exhaling, burning, or carrying any lighted or heated tobacco or plant product intended for inhalation, whether natural or synthetic, in any manner or in any form. This includes the use of an electronic smoking device. So that's just important because California changed. They made their own definitions that would work with the laws that are passed in regards to that. So some new studies have shown that emissions from burning cannabis and tobacco cigarettes contain many of the same toxins, irritants, and carcinogens that are including acetaldehyde, arsenic, benzene, chromium, formaldehyde, and more. Cannabis secondhand smoke contains 8 times as much hydrogen cyanide as tobacco smoke. So for a long time, people weren't as sure what effects secondhand cannabis smoke had. And so there has been some studies, because along with cannabis being legalized in certain states and in certain areas, more studies were conducted on that. So unfortunately, it's showing that it is also very toxic. Please look at the next handout, which says electronic smoking devices and secondhand aerosol. So I'm going to talk a little bit about aerosol. So a lot of times people call it vapor, or they think that it's sort of like a water vapor, and it's not. It's oil-based. And so there's at least 10 chemicals identified in ESD, which stands for electronic smoking device. Vapes, e-cigarettes, puff bars, and flumes. The last two are newer products that are on the market that people aren't as exposed to. Puff bar is something that is a one-time, well, it's a disposable use, but you can get sometimes 1,000 puffs of high density nicotine out of them, and then they're just disposed, as opposed to a refillable jewel or pod-like type of a device. And they're on the California Proposition 65 list of carcinogens and reproductive toxins. So those 10 chemicals. So I'm going to look at the thing and point out a couple of others that are in that same. So if you're around somebody who's using an e-cigarette, you're breathing an aerosol of exhaled nicotine, ultrafine particles, volatile organic compounds, and other toxins. ESD aerosol is high concentration of ultrafine particles, and the particle concentration is higher than in a conventional tobacco cigarette smoke. Okay. There are metals in ESD aerosol, including chromium, nickel, and tin nanoparticles. People exposed to ESD aerosol absorb nicotine, which is measured as cotinine, with one study showing levels comparable to passive smoking. Chemicals from ESD can drift through multi-unit housing buildings and deposit on surfaces and spaces where ESDs are not being used. Overall, ESDs are a new source of volatile organic compounds, VOCs, and ultrafine fine particles in the indoor environment. So health risks associated with exposure to second and third hand smoke and aerosol include asthma, heart attack, lung disease, and cancers. You may have also heard the term third hand smoke, but do most people really know what it is and how toxic it is? And also how extremely difficult it is to remove from an indoor environment. Third-hand smoke and aerosol, including from cannabis, settles into fabric such as furniture, carpet, and curtains. It attaches to hard and porous surfaces like walls and plastics and wood. Where would you suppose that most people are exposed to second and third-hand smoke and aerosol? If you had guessed in the home, you're correct. When people come in contact with these residues and particles, it can be inhaled, ingested, or absorbed into the body through the skin. Children are especially at risk, as well as pets. There's been some studies to show that pets, including birds, dogs, snakes, cats, are affected by secondhand smoke as well. Some people, okay, so the next handout is everyone deserves to have a healthy smoke-free home. So if you would turn to that one. I just want to point out that any amount of secondhand smoke can be harmful, and 41,000 non-smokers die from secondhand smoke exposure each year in the US. It is especially dangerous for children and can cause permanent damage to growing lungs. And did you know that people living in apartments are more likely to be exposed to secondhand smoke? Okay, so smoke and aerosol can enter the home through vents, electrical outlets, windows, and tiny cracks in walls. Up to 65% of the air in an apartment can come from other units in the building. It's especially dangerous for children, as we said, which it can cause permanent damage to growing lungs. Some people wonder, what if there are no smokers or vape users or cannabis users in my home? Would I be protected? Is my family protected? No, not if you share walls or vents with those that produce secondhand smoke or aerosol, which can become third-hand smoke and residue. No, not if you moved into a home that had previously been inhabited by smokers, vapors, or cannabis users. Yes, if the home was new and no smoking, vaping, or cannabis use is allowed inside or outside within 25 feet. So that's a pretty small amount of homes that are probably available that would meet that category, that criteria. So please turn to the next handout entitled Your Home, Your Right to Know About Third-Hand Smoke. And I will too. California residents are becoming increasingly more concerned about smoking history of homes and rentals due to health risks caused by third-hand smoke residues. A survey in 47 counties showed that 90% believe they have the right to know if they will be exposed to these toxins. However, with housing shortages, some people have no choice but to inhabit affected homes and also be subject to living in shared wall housing with active secondhand smoke exposure. I'm going to share a local story. This is somebody who lives in Clearlake, and I am going to share the story while preserving their anonymity. I'm going to tell you about a married mother of three. She's a homemaker with a part-time side business. She lives in a large multi-unit housing complex that has some subsidized units and some market rate units. While living in her apartment with her husband and her first two children, she began being constantly barraged by secondhand smoke and vape aerosol coming from below and both sides of her unit. She tried everything, keeping all the windows and doors shut, therefore having no possibility of fresh air circulation. It kept coming through the heating and cooling vents, so they stopped running the air conditioning and heat, but then it kept coming through cracks in the outlets. She saw the effects on her children with coughs, runny noses, watery eyes, as well as feeling them herself. She spoke with management, but they said there's nothing they can do. When she became pregnant with her third child, she became extremely concerned about the effects breathing these toxins in could do to her baby. She asked to move apartments, but was told by management that she cannot move apartments without a doctor's note saying that it was a health-related issue. She obtained a doctor's note and went through the process of uprooting her family and moving to another apartment. The new apartment had no smokers or vape users in adjoining apartments, and all was well, until somebody moved in downstairs a few months later. And they smoked cannabis multiple times a day and throughout the evening. And it was the same story again. No open window, no using the balcony, no using the air conditioning. And now the entire family is being exposed to secondhand smoke, aerosol, and cannabis effects. This family is at their wits' end. They reached out to the Tobacco Prevention Education Program under the county, asking for help and guidance. And they were referred to me because of our multi-unit housing objective. They will probably have to move and pay higher rent just to protect their children and themselves. The issue is there's very little for rent, as we all know, and they will likely not be able to find an affordable single-family home. They may end up in another shared wall situation like a duplex or triplex. The question is, what about their right to choose health for their children? How can a level playing field be created for all residents? How can we be sure that people who choose not to smoke, vape, or use cannabis have that choice, and that it's not made for them by others? Others people's choices are taking away a child's right not to be exposed to deadly toxins that can affect their health permanently. We can see by the local story that I shared that there were months of exposure, worry, stress, discomfort, and moving a whole household, probably twice, just so a family can live without inhaling toxins hourly, yet it was to no avail. So the question is, what can be done? Many cities, counties throughout California have adopted policies to protect citizens from second and third hand smoke and aerosol from all sources. Seniors, disabled people, veterans, and children are impacted the most by these protections. Please see the handout entitled Americans for Non-Smokers' Rights, which is US laws for 100% smoke-free multi-unit housing. I'm going to point out a few things to you there. As of October 1st, 2022, 76 California municipalities have enacted a law at the city or county level that prohibits smoking in 100% of private unit or rental multi-unit housing properties. So I'm going to point out a couple. I highlighted for you some of the closer by jurisdictions that have enacted some of these. At the top in green, you'll see that there are definitions like final effective date of a policy, minimum number of units that they passed in their jurisdiction that they were going to have a policy be effective for. There's also a place that says includes patio balcony, includes condos. So we have Benicia, Cotati, Crescent City. I want to point out to you also Healdsburg, if I can turn the page. Underneath Healdsburg, number 32, you're going to see Hercules. As you can see, they chose their smallest unit, minimum number of units to be 10 units. They stand out. Most are 2. But if a council or a board of supervisors chooses to choose a specific limited amount of what they would want as their minimum amount of units, that would be up to the choice. We also have Novato, Petaluma, and Roanoke Park, and Windsor to look at for examples. So the program that I'm in, we are tasked with providing data, resources, technical assistance institution, sorry about that. As well, we're available to attend ad hoc committees, speak at the council's request if they choose to investigate a multi-unit housing policy for their jurisdiction. Any questions?
Yes.
Councilmember Kramer, please.
You mentioned the one lady here in Clearlake.
Yes.
Do you know of others?
Yes.
About how many are
I used to work for the county. So historically, I'm speaking not for the county, but just from the experience of being there. We got calls a lot, and they were from, a lot of times it was seniors. I can remember at least 3 or 4 seniors who had health issues, and there was smoking happening all around them. And if they happened to live in one of the multi-unit housing complexes that didn't have it, they were asking, aren't there any laws? Is there something we can do? And really, there's not.
Number wise, can you think 150, 200?
I mean, if I'm thinking of the whole county, I would say we probably got 50 calls, but if we went and presented in anywhere about secondhand smoke, people would ask us about it. We did get a lot of calls from the mobile home parks, but those aren't considered multi-unit housing. And there was a lot of issues there as well. And even, you know, they're not sharing walls, but they're very close together. Yeah.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Purdock.
So I'm curious, do you have any personal familiarity with the ordinance that were passed in those other jurisdictions? Do you know if those units were, say, segregated away in separate building units? Or how did they separate those rental?
Generally, the ordinances or policies that I'm aware of were passed for a jurisdiction, and it covered all multi-unit housing. Most of them that you can see on that list, it was, if it was 2 or more, so it wouldn't separate like wings or specific
Mhm.
areas of a complex. It would be that in our county or in our city, all
Okay.
of and right now in Clearlake, you know, you guys have a lot of multi-unit housing, and you have more coming. And it's about half and half. So if a program is HUD, they by law, you know, the federal government passed, you know, any HUD funded or HUD housing has to be 100% tobacco free. So they also put out a toolkit, and they also, part of their campaign was to say that everyone should go over to that, because why should there be disparity? I mean, we want a level playing field for everybody.
So how does that relate to cannabis and e-cigarette use? Are those
Um,
included in
in
that?
California, because of the definition
Mhm.
of what smoking is, depending on how the ordinance is written. Now, I do believe that there are some that have excluded medical marijuana use, but there is also the other ways that has been addressed is by having a designated area outside, within a certain amount of feet.
Thank you. for
Yeah.
that.
Councilwoman Overton.
Okay, since I'm going to say almost at least 98% of our apartment complexes are HUD, so they have the choice to, of course, not have smoking. So I know that I run the senior center, and I know across there they can't smoke. So, and almost all apartments have the right to say it's a non-smoking,
True.
even private owned ones. So to me that's their judgment. Living in your own house does not mean you're not going to get to smoke. I live in my own house, and I had to close my windows the other day because of marijuana. So just because you live in your own house doesn't mean you're going to get away from it. You're not, you know. So I think it's just here, and I think that since most all of ours are HUD, they should be smoke free anyway.
They're
We
not,
have-
most of them aren't. Actually, I've visited many of
They're
them.
low income. They're funded by the state, so they should be following the state laws.
Well, it's not a state law, it's a federal. Yeah.
Well, then maybe the state should kick in and make the law.
Well, or maybe a jurisdiction if they have a lot of multi-unit housing, you know, if they feel that.
But
would
but I
be
don't,
me.
think you're going to get away from it from just like moving into a house. It's not, you're
Oh,
never, gonna-
yeah,
you're
no,
never going to get away from it. So
wasn't
it's-
suggesting that. Yeah.
So, because I mean, I think marijuana is probably more that I smell than anything anymore. So, and the vaping of the cigarettes. So, you know, I don't think that's going to go away with even a law. It's not going to, I don't think it's going to make a difference. I think it's just another thing to put in place that's going to be sitting on the books, and nothing's going to happen with it. I think it's really up to the apartment owners to convince them to make their places smoke free.
If the council would like to have some data about, you know, jurisdictions that have gone smoke free with their multi-unit housing, If they would like some information from any multi-unit housing that is smoke-free to show what differences it has made, I'd be happy to look some of that up for you.
Thank you.
That would be welcome.
Maybe reaching out.
Okay,
Thanks.
That
Thank
sounds
you
great.
again, Gina.
all right, thank
We'll see
you.
you once a year. Maybe next year will be a little bit less.
Okay,
Thank you.
sounds good, thanks.
All right, we go to item number 3, presentation by the Scotts Valley Energy Corporation on bioenergy and wildlife mitigation. Do we have somebody here for that item? Is it online? Madam Clerk? Mr. Flora?
Yeah, we have multiple people on Zoom, so we'll get them queued up here.
If we're ready, I can begin. If the council is ready.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Mayor Salutin, City Council members. This is Tom Jordan. I am the Tribal Administrator for Scotts Valley Band of Pomo Indians and the Chief of Staff for the Scotts Valley Energy Corporation. Tonight, I have with me Terry Logsman, our Tribal Environmental Director, as well as our CEO for our Clean Carbon Corporation. In addition, I have our main consultant, Jeff Durchie, with Omni Bioenergy. What we'd like to do tonight is to provide for you a brief yet poignant presentation on our foray into the energy industry. And I want to present or provide answers to 3 questions. 1, why Scotts Valley Band of Pomo Indians? 2, what is bioenergy? And 3, what are the more specific technical aspects of bioenergy as it applies to here in Lake County? So to start with, I need to give you a bit of background and history. I joined Scotts Valley Band of Pomo Indians as their tribal administrator about 5 years ago. And shortly thereafter, the tribal council directed me to pursue an opportunities in the realm of economic development. That was necessary primarily because you may know or may not know that Scotts Valley Band is one of the few tribes in the United States and here in California that is landless. We don't have the opportunity that the other tribes here in the county have had to develop their land and use it as a base point for economic development. The one criteria that the Scotts Valley Tribal Council gave me, and we can move to the second slide, was to be sensitive to its cultural value of protecting the environment. And when we talk about protecting the environment, we talk about an ecosystem composed of the people, land, air, water, life in general. And in that regard, we also specified or refined it to the impacts or the happenings that are current in a local area. And for us, this meant Lake County, where wildfires have been a significant destruction of our area, where as we note on our pictograph, recycling market has collapsed. And so whatever we were to do needed to be done in a way that any product that needed to be produced could have a recycling value with it, that it would pursue the bioenergy or biochar production. So that was the basis of the program that we wanted. And you looking at that, I looked around and decided that energy would be an industry that could provide us that opportunity to address that ecosystem sensitivity, as well as provide an economic opportunity for the tribe. And so my first foray was in the field of solar production. And I was thinking that this made a lot of sense until I did some research and realized that the wholesale market for solar cell production had dropped from a 10-year high of about 14 cents to 3 to 4 cents per kilowatt hour. This made it economically unfeasible to market as a wholesale product. And so I did further research and came across the energy area of biomass production. And while that had some setbacks to it, or not setbacks, but some limitations, I was able to come across some additional research and came in contact with Mr. Durchie of the Omni Bioenergy Company. And that is where we began to focus and develop our economic plan. Our economic development plan basically has as a vision a cleaner environment through cleaner energy. Next slide. We have a series of goals that we wanted to produce or to provide under that plan. First, we wanted to have renewable energy in Indian country to be an emphasis, obviously with an emphasis on bioenergy. In that regard, we wanted to make sure that Native American tribes, as well as others, had an opportunity to understand how to decide whether or not bioenergy made sense for them. And so we developed through a contract with the California Energy Commission, coupled with the Strategic Growth Council of California, a bioenergy feasibility toolkit, which gives any consumer of energy the opportunity to ask the question, is bioenergy right for us, and receive a viable answer. We also wanted to make sure that we were having a process or a program as a goal that released no greenhouse gases, that provided a negative, or should I say, a positive carbon footprint, that is to say, mitigated an intense footprint, reducing that footprint to the maximum or the minimal size possible. We wanted to make sure that we always protected the air, keeping Lake County as clean as possible, keeping that tradition of one of the cleanest counties in the United States as it pertains to its air. And we also wanted to improve the ability to have on-demand power, reduce energy costs, and clearly also provide energy resilience, both for the tribes and the communities at large. And so that led us to bioenergy. And why do we want bioenergy? So bioenergy, going to the next slide, please. What I want to talk about here is the difference between biomass production and bioenergy production, because I think it gives a clearer understanding of why we use the terms differently. In biomass, think of your fireplace at home, where you are burning a material, usually a carbon-based material, to create heat. In a biomass production, the same concept is used. A carbon-based material is burned to create heat. Usually there's a secondary flammable gas used to make sure that burning is continued and continues at the level they want. That heating process heats another medium, also often water. That water is turned into steam. The steam is used as a gas that generates electricity. The challenge with biomass is that it will often release GHGs, greenhouse gas emissions, because there is no way to control that. It increases carbon dioxide into the air, and it has a residual of ash that needs to be disposed of in a way. It can also create residuals, as you think about, if you've ever watched a cleaning of a chimney, smokestack tars that need to be cleaned and removed and disposed of. So that's what biomass is as we use it, of the burning of a material. When we use the term bioenergy, we don't burn a material. Rather, we use a process called pyrolysis gasification. Pyrolysis, as you know, is a very ancient process. The key difference is that in pyrolysis, you do not burn a material, but you heat it. In our particular situation, we heat that material to a very high degree, 600 degrees plus Celsius. And in that heating process that is done in a sealed chamber, the material is broken down into two parts. The first part is a flammable gas or syngas, which we then in turn use to generate electricity. The second part is the production of biochar, which is the residual char, which is in the form of charcoal that has value in itself. In order to do this, we have an input material, again, a carbon-based material that is fed into the cylinder. Again, the cylinder is sealed so that the process is clean, the gas is clean. There is no release of GHGs into the atmosphere. There is no release of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. in that process. So in terms of bioenergy, it provides a renewable energy that can be used in a number of applications. Often you'll hear about biomass burning, and you'll hear about using to create oils or fuels. Those are used at a much lower temperature, but also again create ash that needs to be addressed in some form. So yeah, I hope that gives you a simple but clear answer as the difference between our bioenergy program and a biomass program, which is not what we're doing in this county. We are looking at bioenergy as a hybrid of pyrolysis and gasification, as I indicated in the beginning. So the next slide, please. So why bioenergy? As I've indicated before, it aligns with the goals that we set forth at the beginning of our program and our economic development plan. It produces no GHGs. It reduces or minimizes the carbon footprint. It maintains the air quality that we have. It provides the ability, in that sense, to be a carbon negative process when the biochar itself, which has a commercial value, is used as a soil amendment. Carbon is a very good retainer of water in the soil, so that when it's returned to the soil, it not only sequesters the carbon into the soil, which is the greatest release of carbon as we know, but it also provides farmers and users, both backyard gardeners as well, the ability to retain water, thereby using less water and getting the maximum value out of that water. It also provides us the ability to address what we know is a catastrophic problem here in Lake County, and that is the huge numbers of trees and other material that now has no commercial value and needs to be disposed of in a positive recyclable way. Our alternatives are usually basically considered to be three. The first option is to burn that kind of material. Obviously, burning of that material releases carbon dioxide into the air and doesn't enhance our air quality, but negates that air quality and doesn't do anything to address climate change. The other option is to chip the material and leave it on site on top of the ground. Again, that sounds great, except the fact that it also creates the release of carbon dioxide over time, obviously at a slower pace than burning does, but nevertheless, that same amount of carbon dioxide is released over time into the atmosphere. So by using that non-commercial quality carbon-based material, forest material, we are able to transform that material into a viable commodity that again creates that carbon negative perspective that we like to have. And at the same time, it takes advantage of that material that we need to get rid of both in our forests, whether it be the US forest or the BLM or the wild wilderness urban interface area, which so many of us live in these days. We can also use any carbon-based material in our systems. We are talking to the industry, to nut growers, and for almond growers and walnut growers in particular in Northern California, who right now have a waste product in the shell. That waste product is a cost to them with no value. They have to dispose of it. It creates a carbon footprint increase by the fact that they have to transfer it to a landfill or some other disposable site, and there's a cost associated. We can take that same carbon material right on site, use it to generate electricity, and return it back to that particular manufacturing or processing plant to
We lost you.
their plants. I'm sorry. Was there a question?
We lost your audio. Okay.
Is it back? I can hear him.
Am I back?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. So for those reasons, we believe bioenergy is a logical clean energy as alternative for here in Lake County. We also know that bioenergy has the ability to do advanced technology is when linked together. And if we look at the next slide, we can see some of the other alternatives that are available here and is where syngas can be used to generate other additional products besides just pure energy or power to power a plant. So Jeff, if you'd like to talk about those, that would be great.
Sure. Thanks very much. And thank you for the council for this opportunity to speak. As Tom said, bioenergy, the primary application is a gas like natural gas that can run turbines or combustion engines to make electricity. But if you think about what bioenergy is, it's basically making hydrocarbons out of carbon in the environment. So wood chips from forest management, walnut shells from walnut processing. And those hydrocarbons can be manipulated in many ways. And as you see on the graph, a conversion to pure hydrogen is one solution. It's about the ratios that you make. To make pure hydrogen, you're basically taking a syngas, which is equal parts hydrogen and carbon monoxide typically, and purifying it. You can mix it with water to convert the CO to additional hydrogen, and then purify it into a transportation fuel. Of interest to us is Lake County and the Lake Transit's interest to do hydrogen buses. So it would be a really terrific thing to create hydrogen in the county to power those buses. Additionally, a simple approach with partner technology is to upgrade the hydrogen to about 1.8 to 2 times the amount of carbon monoxide. And that fits with commercial available technology to create a drop-in renewable diesel. So basically a liquid fuel that could run diesel generators, diesel buses, diesel trucks. And also to the extent the scale works, it can make a drop-in strategic aviation fuel. So these are additional applications that are available in the future. For now, waste to energy and the support of microgrids that complements wind and solar is the immediate opportunity, and the fuel and creating fuel for vehicles and industry is the future. But all of these processes are net carbon negative in the 20 to 30% of the conversion process keeps a fixed carbon, which is called biochar, and it can be field applied, it can be a soil amendment, and it has a lifetime of thousands of years. So that carbon does not release back into the environment. So Tom, if you want me to continue, I think the basic genesis or the interest of Scotts Valley is economic development, but it's also supporting the community, and that the viability and need, frankly, for these types of small scale distributed systems can support the community and either local load or sale under the wholesale biomass tariff around the county. And so we, in consultation with the tribe, have looked at multiple sites. And what we do is take a spiral approach to site review. We think that the feedstock in the county with the plethora of forestry management going on is a given. The tribe has formed an approach to have centralized management of that and processing of that material so it could be delivered to any site without the need for storage or processing on site. So, but we need to look at zoning and permitting. This isn't solar panels on your roof, so it can't be anywhere. And the other additional big impact we look for is the grid implications. And so in the city of Clearlake, for example, we've identified corridors of opportunity. And we can do that around the county, and we have. And so, Tom, do you want to jump in there?
No, I think you're doing a great job. Go ahead.
Okay. So as I said, once we've defined a site, then of course we did look at zoning, and these things aren't linear, they're circular. As I say, we use a spiral model. And so we can winnow down the viable applications, and at the basis, we would look at a site load. To serve a local load is awesome, like a hotel casino or a community center or a food, a cold storage facility. These things use a lot of power and could use the power on site, or it can be exported. And we can identify where those opportunities exist. And overlaying that, is trust or fee land, but it's really the issue of rolling these things together. And the electricity sale and the biochar sales are really part of a financial study that's downstream from this discussion. We wanted just to give you the information about our interests and goals and share, so that if we can collaborate on site selection, that would be of interest, I think, to us. And this is a pretty distorted graphic. I apologize for that, but it's an overview of obviously the Clearlake area and most of Lake County. And so it's ideally suited for wood processing centers in the North and South County and potentially other areas. And you can see the pin drops where we think there are viable potential bioenergy project opportunities. And this is not mutually exclusive for sure. But Tom, you should mention Red Hills and any of the others that you'd like to elaborate on here.
Well, I think what is important to understand is our system, as we've tried to allude to, is targeted to a consumer of energy. And so we target, or we scale the size of the plant production to the demand that is known, because our system is demand responsive, that operates 24/7, unlike solar or wind, which are dependent on natural phenomena to operate. So for example, our Red Hills plant is a very small plant. It would be a 200 kilowatt plant. It has nothing that it can serve directly, so it would be selling directly in a power purchase agreement back with PG&E, which we're in the process of negotiating right now at a set tariff rate for that product, which is clearly within that 12 to 20 cents per kilowatt range. You can see that we're right above that in the city yard of Clearlake. Looking around in that area, we could create a bioproduct or project program that could go up to 1 megawatt. We stay within that 700 or that 200 to 1.2 to 1.5 megawatt is the area that we like to go in, because once you start getting to too large an area, then you've got the issue of having to supply that with the intake material. And if your transportation costs get too great, which is the problem with many of the biomass plants that are running at 3, 4, and 5 megawatts, the cost of the transport outweighs the cost of the revenue that you can generate, and the plants become inefficient from a cost perspective. So those are things that we look at when we look at a demand or a consumer of that electricity, and scale to that electricity, providing it on a 24-hour basis. That gives them that resilience that needed, particularly when we know that PPS can happen. There's an alert right now that's applying to Lake County. We may lose power in this upcoming weekend for an indefinite period of time. That has an impact on anybody who's running an operation, and our systems would be independent of that system. That also creates the independence from the major utility operator, in our case PG&E, which many people in the county have expressed desire that we need to certainly be able to be minimizing our reliance on PG&E, and our system is just one of the ways that can happen. So those are some of the facts that we like to make known in our process. Our plants also take up very small space. No more than 10,000 square feet would be the large size plant, compared to one of our plants running around 300 kilowatt hours 24/7 is equivalent to a 1 megawatt solar plant operation. That solar plant operation would take 3 acres of land, which could be better used for other sources, particularly in areas that we have here in Clearlake and Lake County. So I'm not sure we have answered all your questions, so we're happy to sit here and respond to any questions that you may have, to provide you more clarification.
We have a question from Councilman Kramer.
Yes,
Yes.
Councilman Kramer.
Thank you. I've heard this presentation was a lot more detailed than what I've heard in the RRA meetings of the last few weeks. So I appreciate that. I actually wanted to talk, I think Terry was going to help me with probably some of what you're giving me now. But specifically, you mentioned 10,000 square foot for a plant for 200 kilowatts up to 3 acres for a megawatt. Did I understand that correctly? Does that include,
No.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, the comparison was that 200 kilowatts operating 24/7 is equivalent to 1 megawatt of solar. So solar only generates power about 6 hours a day versus 24 hours for bioenergy.
Got it.
And
So does
bioenergy, yeah.
So obviously, to create biochar, mass, you're going to have to bring in, I'm assuming, chipped product. So what's that? How much room would the storage of that take prior to it being running through the burner or the gasifier? And then the product that comes out the other end, I don't think you're going to be taking that off site every day. So what would be the total size of a plant of 200 kilowatts and or 1 megawatt in size? And then the next question is, I think you were talking about either creating hydrogen for our buses, for our lake transit, or anyway, creating that or creating power. If you're creating power now, did I understand you say in Clearlake, you would probably just put it into the PG&E transmission system, which runs through our avenues? Is that kind of what you were thinking there, or do you have some other place that it's going to go?
So you've asked 3 questions. I think
Yeah.
I can answer. That's okay. They're
So
great
we answered
questions. They're clarifying questions and we appreciate them, but I think I can answer the first. I think Jeff can answer the second, and I probably can come back and answer the third.
All right.
So the first question in terms of the size of the plant, what Jeff alluded to, and I did not speak clearly on, is that we are in the process of developing a centralized wood processing operation. That operation would be the place where we would take all the wood chip material in, process it down to the size that we use it for the intake material into our gasifiers, as you call them, which is a good terminology. That size is very small. If you could think of a wood pellet stove chip, our chips are even smaller than those that go through the system. That chip size is loaded into a transport truck, a 20-foot transport truck, and transported down to a project site, backed up into the building that would be constructed, and unloaded with a pneumatic vacuum process right into the regulated into the gasifier's hopper, and through an auger process through the cylinder or the chamber in which the heating occurs. So there is what we've tried to eliminate in the process and learning about our program is to eliminate that need to have each side have its own holding area for chip that needs to be processed there on the site. And it's a 2 grinding process. If you were to start with raw material, you chip it to one level and then you chip at a second level to get it down to the size we want. All of that would be done at a wood central process away. And so the site itself does not have to experience that program or process.
So how many of
Biochar is, as Jeff says, if we put a ton in, we get 2,600 pounds out. That is collected and taken away. The Clean Carbon Company is responsible to market that product. There are a number of applications. I only talked about soil amendment application, but there are a number of applications. So that product would be brought back up here to our plant here in Lakeport. and processed if we were going to use it as activated charcoal and use it as a filtration system. We are currently looking at a project where we'll be using carbon, the biochar as a filtration medium for waters coming into the Clearlake to see if we can pull out the phosphorus before it enters the lake. If that is the case, we now have a charged biochar that is even more valuable as a soil amendment. We probably recognize that that load would be taken away at a minimum once per day, possibly once every other day, depending on the size of the plant. The bigger the plant, the more biochar that is created. So I think that answers your first question. I think Jeff needs to answer your question around hydrogen.
So let me answer. Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. I honestly, I didn't catch the question about hydrogen. But let me answer the question about what to do with the electricity, because I think hydrogen fueling stations aren't really today's problem in Lake County. I think PG&E and energy resilience and security from PSPSs are more urgent. So there's two ways to use the electricity. One is a wholesale sale. Red Hills is a 200 kilowatt system with a power purchase agreement to sell wholesale to PG&E at almost 20 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's a state law and a state program that the three major utilities are required to operate under. The second application is to serve a local load. So I won't speak for Robinson Rancheria or Middletown's Twin Pines, but those type of locations use a lot of power. And one of these systems could fully offload their power requirement in what's known as a net metering installation, where the power is basically used on site. It might leak into the grid back and forth, but there's a contract for the power requirement, and that's how the system is sort of paid for and monetized. So those are two examples, and other than doing that sort of net metering without exporting, that would be a third approach, but it's really just a variation on the theme. Could you please ask the third question if
I forgot what it was.
I
Let me though go back and just ask for some clarification on the materials per day in the one truck, 20-foot van. So I'm guessing that's what, 10 tons, maybe 5 tons a day coming in.
Right. We would use 28 or 45-foot trucks. The 28 are preferred because it's just more facile. So if that was a 200 kilowatt system, that truck would sit there for 4 days, approximately, plus or
It
minus.
would take 4 days for that truck for the material to be used out of one truck.
Right, for the smallest system that we would do, yes. And
How
then,
about the megawatt? How about the 1 megawatt? The 200 kilowatt really is a small system. I mean, we have a 200 kilowatt generator at our community center for basically one building or 3 buildings in emergency. So the megawatt one sounds like it would be the more viable to really sell a significant amount of electricity.
right, well, we've done, as Tom mentioned, for the Strategic Growth Council, we did a feasibility study for Robinson Rancheria. And we determined that we could offset 99% of their electricity use with a 350 kilowatt system. And again, that's net metering. So it's pushing power onto the grid at night when the need's not there, and then they're using it on site locally. So it's just like with solar. If you've ever had someone try to sell you solar, they do all this analysis about power flow and things like that. But it's basically linear. The power in a pound of wood chips is the same. It varies on average, but it's basically the same. So a 1 megawatt system would be 5 times a 200 kilowatt system. So you basically would design a truck that at least was one a day. And then the biochar would be trucked away, we'd probably use smaller trailers for the biochar and do it once a day, but it could be up to once every 3 days. But as you can see, it really depends. And the cost of the system depends as well, based on, how much infrastructure needs to be built versus just the core energy equipment.
And then one last question, the materials you're using, obviously there's a lot of dead and dying pine trees and around the county. I guess I'm assuming they'd be part of it. You mentioned walnut shells. And then I think somewhere, I guess when I was at our risk reduction authority meeting, I thought I saw brush as being a potential source of chips as well. Did I hear that correctly?
You mean like brush from yard clearing?
Brush from brush.
Brush
Yeah.
from brush, absolutely. Yeah, so we're testing a variety of feedstocks for flowability, for gasability, a number of things, from rice hulls to prune pits to mixed oak and pine to hemp, and just the list goes on. The organic material in the environment, if it doesn't have a commercial use and it's not toxic or have halides or dangerous chemicals in it, is a viable source.
What's the furthest that you can economically transport it to the biochar biomass facility?
Yeah, I mean, every $10 per ton in the feedstock adds, takes about takes away from the profitability, I would say, on the order of a penny per kilowatt hour. So typically about $40 to $50 a ton is where you're starting to break the economic viability. But that's a long distance. You have to factor in processing and other things into that as well. But in the county, I don't think that the distance from Upper Lake to Middletown is an issue at all. If you're going, from Middletown north to Ukiah or somewhere further north, then it starts to become an issue. And I wish I could be more specific to answer that, but I'd have to do the economic analysis based on a specific.
I can ask that question later.
Councilman Claffey has another question.
I had a question around noise pollution. So a plant of the size that you're building in Red Hills compared to the plant that would be 1 megawatt, what type of impact does that have? What does it sound like to the neighborhood?
Yeah, so it's a great question, and that's why we tried to mention in our sort of circular process that zoning and permitting is an issue. We would definitely not think about putting this anywhere that's not in a commercial, at least, and preferably industrial or a remote ag type of location. It wouldn't be at retail, it wouldn't be in residential at all. And the answer, more specific answer, is that the micro turbines that we sort of favor are they're very nimble generators, and they're fairly quiet. So 60, 70 dB, to the extent you have a 200 kilowatt system is one of those, a megawatt would be 5 of those. I don't think you really generate more than the 60 dB because they're all humming at the same rate. And so there's other elements to the noise production. But the fact that you're not grinding and chipping wood on site, that it's just trucks coming in and out, takes away a large impediment that we found at Red Hills, and that's why we've sort of worked around that. So the only other way I can answer the question is the distance from the noise generator to the auditory receptor is a big factor. And every 10 meters or so, you're dropping dBs, and so distance matters. At Red Hills, we're, I think Tom can correct me, but at least 800 to 1,000 feet from any noise receptor, and that makes us pass any Lake County ordinance that you could think of.
We'd have no more questions from council, so thank you very much for your presentation. Very educational. And do I understand that you're just in the process of of building your first pilot program. Is that correct?
That's correct. Here in the
Great.
county,
Thank you.
that's correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Mayor Slutin. And thank you for spending the time with us and learning a bit more about any other future questions come up. Please feel free to reach out to me. And if I can't answer them, I will direct them and get you the answers that you're looking for.
Thank you very much. All right, we go to public comment. This is the time for any member of the public to address the city council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city. The Brown Act, with limited exceptions, does not allow council or staff to discuss issues brought forth under public comment. The council cannot take action on any non-agenda items. Concerns may be referred to staff or placed on the next available agenda. Please note that comments from the public will also be taken on each agenda item. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes per person. Do we have any? Please, Barbara, come to the mic, please.
My name is Barbara Christwitz, and I live in Clearlake, 3568 Vista Street. I'm commenting on about a month ago going past the bridge near Redbud Library and seeing a tent all set up down there with people in it. So I proceeded to Judge's Breakfast, and there was Chief White, and I mentioned that to him. And when I came back an hour later, everything was gone. So he had called code enforcement, he had called police to take care of that matter. Unfortunately, then the next day or in the next couple of days, the tent was several hundred yards away. And so anyway, my friend and I took a tour of the creek bed there between the library and Calvary Chapel. There are 3 unhoused encampments. And then there's a fellow that I got to know named Robert, who's now under the bridge with all kinds of stuff. And so I talked to him and I said, so you know about Hope Center? And oh yeah, he had been expelled from Hope Center. It didn't work out for him. So anyway, we all know that it's a problem in the creek bed. And so then my thought is now what do we do as a town? Because it just creates garbage and everything. So I'm hoping that we will, as a city, create a tent city for those that Hope Center does not work out for, where there would be a water spigot, a dumpster, a porta potty, 24-hour supervision, and a lock box for people's stuff. So that's what I'm talking about. And in the meantime, I'm hoping that there would be some police supervision to tell people they have to move along. They're not going away. They will be somewhere. So anyway, that's my 3 minutes. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Mr. Robert Coker, you have a couple of items that you want to address the city council with? I see 3 here.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
My name is Robert Coker. I'm a citizen of Clearlake and a business owner also. My first concern is the garbage prices. Since enacted that it was mandatory that every resident has garbage, it started at $60. Now it's at $80. I went to the dumps last week with a minimum and it was $10. So for Bunny and I, it would cost me $20 a month to go to the dumps. Recyclables are free and Quackenbush is $15 for minimal. So I don't know, something's got to be done because there's a lot of folks in this city that can't afford the $80 a month. So that's what I have to say about the garbage. The next one is about the old hickory sheds. I have a number of customers that want to put sheds on their empty property, the minimum of a 10 by 12, so they can clear their land. So they don't have to pack up their tools every Sunday, drive back to where they live, pack them up Friday to come back up and clear their property. So I would like to find out if there's something that we can do about having a minimum size shed, like the 120 that's on the books, so they can put it on their property and not worry about having to take the stuff home every Friday or Sunday, whenever they come up. Now, my third one is about a lady that lives at the old Jules property. She's killing my business. The words that come out of that lady's mouth are some of the worst words I have ever heard. We have families that come. They unload their kids out of the car. As soon as she sees them, she's at the edge of the street screaming some of the worst words you have ever heard. I've called the police numerous times. They tell me that the only thing I can do is take a video of her when she threatens to fight me. This is uncalled for. I'm losing crazy amount of money because a lot of people come from out of town. They pull up, they unload their kids, and she starts screaming about pedophiles doing things that you couldn't imagine. They load their kids right back up in the car and leave. So something's got to be done about that lady. I don't know what, and I really don't care, but it's got to be done. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob. Okay, any more in the audience here? If not, is there anybody on Zoom, Madam Clerk?
There's one hand raised on Zoom.
Please let them
Elizabeth.
proceed.
Hi, this is Elizabeth with Lake County News. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Elizabeth.
Okay. I'm having trouble with Zoom tonight. It keeps dropping, so I don't know if I missed if there was an opportunity to ask some questions about the biochar project. Was there an opportunity for the public to ask that?
I think they left a meeting already, but if they're still around, I don't know if they're still on Zoom or not.
Okay,
No,
well, my question is for you then. My question is, are they asking the city for a specific site? Because tonight they showed a map that had a whole bunch of sites on it. I've been asking for specific sites from them and they have refused to give them. And tonight they come with a map. So are they asking specific sites from the city?
No, they're not.
Okay. Because
That
we
was
sure
just
like
a
to know in
presentation.
Lucerne what they have cooked up for us because they're not talking to us. So I'd like to know who they're actually talking to and what sites have been vetted and confirmed.
The way I understand it, Elizabeth, they're working on one specific site in the Red Hills. I don't have no idea where it is, but that's the only place they are trying to get something going. That's my understanding.
They own a piece of property that's catty cornered from Kids Corner. There's an orchard there, so I'm assuming that's the property that they're working on. But just to add a little bit, I mean, we have talked to Mr. Jordan a few times, and he's expressed interest in some sites around here. You know, he had the public works yard on his map, and we let him know that that wasn't something that was going to work for the city, and that we would let him know if we had any ideas on something that might be feasible here. But
So it sounds like they have one site, specific sites that they're trying to get going, but that's all I really know from. Any more questions, Elizabeth?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, go to item number G, the consent agenda. Can I have a motion, please? Anybody wants to pull an item on this? If not, we'll move on. Any public wants to pull on any item of this? If not, we'll take it back to the council. Can I entertain a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
That is as amended. 'cause
As
we
amended.
took- Okay, very
I'll
good.
second.
We have a motion by Councilman Claffey and a second by Councilwoman Overton. You want to try the electronic voting again? There we go. Voting doesn't seem to be open. Okay, a vote call. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We'll move on. Go to item number 10, business. Mr. Flora.
Okay, yes, Mr. Mayor. So we had a request to remove this from the agenda, but I think that it would be helpful to give the council just a tiny bit of background before any decisions are made. So, based on kind of the experience in tribal relationships and the consultation process, changing a little bit over time and working with different tribes on different projects, we felt like that some of the best practices out there were to have more of a consistent policy framework for tribal consultation and dealing with tribal cultural resources within our jurisdiction. And so we hired E-Corp Consulting, who has developed a number of these across California, to do one here. Our original intention was to have this policy as an interim policy and then invite all the tribes that have interest in their historical lands being within Clear Lake's jurisdiction to kind of work out some of the details. We thought there was value in having that interim policy in place because we have a lot of projects going on and it would help sort of guide that. We had a consultation with the Khoi tribe earlier today on a specific project. Of course, we had sent this to them a few days back, as well as the other tribes. And their request of the council is that there not be any action taken on even an interim policy tonight. They identified a few things that they think this policy needs to be updated on. So we've shared that with our consultant, and our hope would be, staff's recommendation would still be to come back at a future meeting with an interim policy. But we also want to develop sort of a path and a framework to meet with all the tribes, go over this and have a final policy that's in place for the future. And sort of in addition to that, I also had a meeting with the city of Lakeport and the county earlier this week, I think it was, to talk about this. They're also very interested in taking a similar approach. There was some interest in trying to do this countywide at the same time. I don't know if that's really feasible or not, or how long that may drag the process out, but I told them that we'd be happy to discuss that with them. So anyway, that's kind of where we are. I'm not asking the council to take any action tonight on this, but I'm happy to try and address any questions if you would like. And we were going to have our consultant on board, but because of this recommendation, we don't have her here tonight to address any specific question.
Councilman Kramer.
So you're asking us to basically table this?
Vice Mayor Purdock.
Do you know when you'll be bringing it back to us?
Not really for sure. We'll have to talk to our consultant and go from there. I would still like to do something before the end of the year, but we'll see.
Okay. We'll open the public hearing. Any comments from our Khoi Nation? If not, do we have any public comment on Zoom, Madam Clerk?
There's one hand raised on Zoom, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor.
Go ahead. Oh, if Robert wants to say something, let's get Zoom first. Thank you.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, sorry, I thought Robert was speaking. No, I just was clarifying that it is an interim policy, understanding the need for a comprehensive policy to deal with tribal consultations, AB 52, SB 18. But because at the last planning commission meeting, the intent was to have consultations with the tribe and the city. And since this document doesn't include those consultations, it seems like it wouldn't go with the intent of the last planning commission decision and possibly tie the hands of not only the planning commission, but potentially private enterprise as well. Because I saw that private companies were in there as well. So it might be helpful to have maybe the development group that's doing the development by the senior center, the housing there at the table too. And thank you, Alan for the explanation, and thanks to staff for all the work put into it. And so I guess it's not so much a question. I guess it's double confirming that it is, well, that there's actually no action taken on it. It's not interim, it's just no action today.
No, there is no action today.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. Robert, you had want to make a comment?
Robert Gary. How are all of you? My name is Robert Gary, born and raised here in Lake County, from Clearlake Oaks. Graduated from here, came back, worked for here. I'm also the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer and the Director of Cultural Resources for the Bemidji Pomo. Also work with the Koi Nation. I just wanted to put my input, I think, on this document. I reviewed it, went through it. It does need to be updated. There are actually new laws that have been put into place since the creation of this document that I think that address tribal consultation that are not in this document and how the process goes for that. There are a few, I want to say about 3 or 4 laws that are not a part of this document. So I think it's really important that we update this document also with consultation, I think, with the tribes. Different tribal, cultural resources on different areas. I think tribal needs, different cultural values and different cultural systems, different political systems. And I think all those need to actually come to the table to be able to create a really good document for projects that happen in the city of Clearlake, and that we could all work together to be able to create a process that really kind of streamlines, I think, projects that happen where both the city feels good about what's happening, and then that the tribes know that the tribal cultural resources are being protected during those projects. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Robert. Any more public comment? Mr. Dino Beltran.
Sound a little grovelly on that one. Good evening, everybody. How are you? I'm Dino Beltran with the Koi Nation. I appreciate you. Good to see you. I think the intent of what's been brought forward today is a nice intent. I think it was more of a boilerplate document that was brought to us. And I think along with what Robert is saying, the municipality that came from has a whole different set of cultural resource impacts on that particular city. This one here is has a lot of tremendous impacts here. So I think in tandem with Robert said, having the input from the tribe from the onset will be very helpful to you, so you won't be hamstrung. I think even though this was intended to be an interim process, there's already another process in play that helps the city, and it's AB 52. So when you follow Senate Bill AB 52 in earnest, the tribal resources would be respected from that point. But having this policy is a nice layer on top of that. So thank you for that, and I appreciate tonight. Oh, and I'm glad that they followed the input of your new consultant, Lisa Westwood. It was her suggestion to pull it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments? We'll close the public hearing. We'll bring it back. Oh, go ahead, sir.
Hello, my name is Ron Montez. I'm the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer for the Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians. But I was raised in Clearlake Oaks on the Ilem Indian Colony.
I think we went to school together, Ron.
Yeah, I think so. We graduated in 68.
66.
I was there, but yeah. And also graduate of Lower Lake High, go Trojans. I just wanted to say that along with what has been spoken here already tonight, is just to point out again that each tribe is a separate individual nation with their own little quirks and their own desires and their own way of communicating with people and dealing with people. Although we may be called Pomo, that was an archaeologist person who named us all that. He just threw everybody in because of our language was similar, but it's not really similar. But being Pomo here in Clearlake and Pomo in Lakeport is different. Here, when I was raised in Elam, there was no electricity or water. There was electricity and water in Lakeport. And they went to school. My cousins and relatives went to school there with the ability to have nice pressed clothes. Mine, I had to heat and iron on a wood stove to press my clothes to go to school. And so there's a whole difference in all of us around this lake. And we may have similar languages. This is Southeastern Pomo. I'm Eastern Pomo from that side. And we have different histories because of how my cousins and relatives were treated on this side of the lake and how my relatives were treated on that side of the lake. So we are vastly different in those things. And we're closer to Konocti. They're over here, but they named it Konocti. And so those things need to be taken into consideration whenever you're coming up with any consultation policies. Because one set of rules may not always address everything that's needed. And so I'm just here to support Koi Nation and Robert from Elam, and also the Pomo people from Big Valley. And I know that we are all very proud that we have made it through all these thousands of years of our ancestors, and we take pride in that. And so we would just like to be at the table when you discuss things for our input. Most of the time I go to any of these meetings, we hear a perspective that comes across that's not normally our perspective, because we see things just a little different. And sometimes we don't say anything, and so you don't know. But I just wanted to remind you that we have some history of being in this county, in this city, when it used to be called the Highlands. They had an arcades right across the street over there. Used to play those penny arcades. The A&W right down the corner. Yeah, and yeah, I'm very familiar with this place. So I would like to just, again, encourage you to keep that in mind, that we are all different and our values may be different also. And the way that we relate may be a little different. And so in your trying to get your policies together, just keep that in mind, because we see things a little different. But we want to have a working relationship with you, because this is our home. It's been here before Clearlake was here. And so we are concerned about everything that happens on these lands, and this water, and the trees and animals, because that's what we were placed here to do, was to preserve and take care of them. So any decisions that you guys make, it impacts us, and we would really like to be side by side with you in those decision-making things, situations, just so that you could hear from our perspective. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Any additional comments from the public? If not, we close the public hearing now and bring it back to the council, so no action is required. All right.
Action to table it?
You don't need action.
Don't need to, okay.
Okay, we go to item number 11, authorization of a joint use agreement with Konocti Unified School District for the use of the Clearlake Youth Center for youth and recreation oriented activities. Mr. Flora.
I think Ms. Swanson is going to present the staff report on this item.
Okay.
Honorable Mayor and council members, your council is being asked to approve a joint use agreement with Konocti Unified School District for the use of the Clearlake Youth Center for youth and recreation activities, and authorize the city manager to negotiate the final agreement. For background, in June, your council approved the formation of the Recreation and Events Division of the Administrative Services Department with the intention of increasing public engagement and activities through the creation of recreation programs and community events. Staff has formed a valuable partnership with Canocta Unified School District to jointly bring those programs to fruition. KUSD has preliminarily agreed to assist with the much-needed rehabilitation of the youth center in return for cooperative use for planned after-school activities, youth camps, and a city and district employee daycare. If your council approves this agreement, Superintendent Salato will present the agreement to Canocta Unified School District Board for their consideration. Staff asks that your council authorize the city manager to negotiate the final agreement based on further input. If necessary, minor legal and technical changes are suggested. And I see Superintendent Salato is present and we're available for questions.
Do we have any questions for staff? Councilwoman Overton.
I don't see an agreement in here. Am I missing it?
Can you refresh?
See, I mean,
Did you open the right documents?
yeah, I opened on the thing and it just says
You're right. It's not attached. It shows it. But it's not.
It's, if you refresh, it's in there.
oh, okay.
What is the refresh note? Okay. I don't see it either.
Oh, on the web.
Where?
Oh,
This one?
Nope, top left.
oh, there it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I did, and it didn't, I lost it all.
That one? Oh, that one, sorry.
Yep. There we go. Okay.
Okay, that
All
doesn't
right.
work.
I was gonna say, I had just refreshed just a few minutes ago, so she must have just
Oh,
got it
gosh.
up there.
No, I have nothing.
So sorry, because I haven't been able to read it.
Yeah, no, this is what I have right now. Garbage. Okay.
I think our illustrious superintendent would like to make some.
I think you need to educate us on how to refresh, if you could.
Although I think your IT director is.
Please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, city team. I think you all know me, Becky Salato. I'm the superintendent for Canocta Unified School District. And I just wanted to I thank you for your time tonight and wanted to assure you that on behalf of our school board, we are super excited about this and I appreciate your consideration in moving forward. I think this joint use agreement is something that we can work on together and will both benefit the city and the school district, and obviously most important, our youth. So I encourage you, I hope it is approved. If approved here, we'll be taking it next Wednesday to our board. And aside from that, I just really wanted to shout out City Manager Flora and his team, Melissa and Tina have just been wonderful working on this project. You know, it's a kind of a out of the box idea that we had, and the process moving forward has been wonderful. On behalf of our kids, I really want to say that we truly appreciate the continued support always from the city of Clearlake. And this is another great example of how you support our youth, and we greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Superintendent.
And if there's any questions that I can help
What,
on.
what activities do you envision going in there?
We've met, actually, Tina came and met with my principals and myself, and we've talked about camps, possibly youth camps during intercession breaks, during spring breaks, during the summer on one end of the building, possibly after school activities. And on the other end, as it was discussed, it will be a daycare center for both city employees. We'll have slots as well as our employees, our teachers and classified staff. We're hoping to get approval on that to have both infant and toddler daycare, which is greatly needed. I'm sure you all know in this area. Most of our employees and your employees don't fall above the area where they can get
most of the daycare, subsidized daycare that's in this area. So this is a great need to help us retain and hire good quality staff.
Great. Councilman Claffey, you have a question?
Yeah, I'm looking at section 4 here on maintenance. A lot of this is to refurbish the facility. Who's going to be the lead agency in terms of ongoing maintenance?
I think that's probably one of the things we'll continue to negotiate. I believe the city was going to take the lead and will support, again, great working relationship. We've had our crews. I'm a little nervous. My crews are like falling in love with your team. So they've been over to look at repairs already. I have very solid direction from my board that, we can do as much as is needed to support to get it going.
Councilman Kramer.
Yes, Superintendent Toledo, I'm not used to calling you that.
I know.
But what percentage of time do you expect to use the facility?
So the facility is divided into two ends. And so, and I'm not going to know the direction, but if I'm looking this way, the right side has two areas, where the boxing facility was located before. And we're hoping that that can be our daycare center because it's kind of a nice divide of two rooms. So it will allow, per licensing, we have to separate infant to toddler daycare. So we're hoping to use that end, which would be a daily use. We're looking at licensing from probably 7 to 5, which we think would fit both needs for our employees. The other side would be more of the joint use with your recreation department, as well as our after-school programs and summer activities. And it would still allow the city.
I wasn't quite through with my question, but so that's all your use. I think in here it did talk about the use by other users. What percentage of the time do you think, what's that split look like, and what parts would they use? They wouldn't use the daycare center, I guess.
Right. I think the only thing for us that would be kind of have to be off limits because of licensing would be the daycare. But the other side is the large rec room. And I think, we would be using, I'm sure that's something we'll work out and get a schedule put up, but I don't see why there would be any reason when we're not, I think we would use it after school sometimes, and really at the bigger holidays when we don't have after school activities going on our sites, when our sites are closed down. We had an intercession last week, so that would have been a perfect time for a week of camp.
So the idea that you would be the primary user and the others non-schools, you would be the secondary user of the facility.
I mean, this isn't an agreement where we're leasing the building to the school district and they're the primary user, really. They would be the primary user of the daycare area, and then it's a joint use agreement. So, we would share as needed as new programs are developed and so forth.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Overton.
Okay, so I just want to get this straight. I'm excited. This is exactly what I would like to do with this youth center. I've been, when I walked away from it, I had to. This is kind of the things that I were hoping for, was that we would all connect and make something happen here. I would really like to see the school think about, when we do have these breaks and stuff, how can we have an after school program there? Because one of the things is like, people are like, oh my God, my kids are home for a week. I don't know what I'm going to do. I have no daycare. And a lot of them had to take off of work, and they can lose their jobs for that. So I'd really like to see us work on a basis of that. I'm excited that somebody's finally going to put that sidewalk in on the side. I wanted that done, but I didn't have the money to get it done. So it looks like everything you're doing here is just exactly what I was hoping for the youth center when I developed it. So I am excited that we're making this connection, and I think this is going to be really good for our community. And like I said, would like to see a after school program, if nothing else, there when the school doesn't have theirs going. And things, when I had the after school program there, we did have the kids that really couldn't make it in the regular school after school program, but they did really well in ours. So, hopefully we can do something on that basis too. So I'm thrilled. Go for it.
Just one, I have a comment here from South Shore Little League that is also really excited about this. So, And I think it's one of those programs that, after-school programs is something that's really needed. And daycare, I mean, the hospital, everybody needs it. So the affordable daycare is something so this is a part solution to me. All right, we have
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add a little bit more information. While I don't want to add it, end with a negative spin on this, because our working relationship with the school district is fantastic. Really couldn't be better partnership. But I do think it's important to let the council know, because there's been a lot that's happened at that facility, especially in the last week. So as you know, there was a lease with Lake County Youth Services for that facility. There were a number of violations with the lease agreement, and we met probably over 4 months ago initially in trying to correct those issues. We had a few bumps along the way, but we had a number of times where there was a verbal agreement on a path forward to sort of get control of the building and be able to fix some of the maintenance and safety issues that existed there. Unfortunately, that organization did not negotiate with us in good faith. And even while negotiating with us for a number of things this week, they were ripping equipment and facilities or fixtures out of that facility. There's nothing left in the kitchen anymore except for the sinks, and they tried to take those and rip them off the wall. So I'm just letting you know that have filed an unlawful detainer action against them. We'll be evicting them from that building. It's going to cost us more money than we envisioned to get things back in service. But we have no interest in working with that group in the future in that facility or any other ones.
Well, it sounds like you did the right thing, because obviously, they're not the most upstanding group.
Very unfortunate.
That kitchen equipment belonged to the city.
Yeah.
The kitchen
Well,
equipment belonged to me.
Yeah,
I let
well,
them use it. The stuff that was in that kitchen was mine, except for the refrigerator and freezer units.
we're happy to talk separately if
Yeah.
that was the case. If there's anything that we can do to pursue retrieving that, we'd be willing to do so.
All right, we'll open it up to the public. Anybody wants to have a comment on this? Anybody on Zoom, Madam Clerk?
There are no hands raised on Zoom, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the council.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agreement between the city of Clearlake and Canocti Unified School District for joint use of city property for a community recreation/school uses.
Second.
Okay, I think Councilwoman Overton beat you.
That's
We have a
fine.
motion by Councilman Kramer and Councilwoman Overton seconded the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we'll move out to our last item. Mr. Flora, or no, this is an item that's
Chief
addressed
White
by
brought
Chief
this.
White. Chief White.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, members of the public. The item before you tonight is to ask for your consideration of waiving the live scan rolling fee for volunteers of youth services organizations. You may be aware, but in September of 2021, the state passed legislation that requires volunteers in youth services organizations to complete a live scan background check. The purpose of that legislation was to exclude persons with a history of child abuse, which is certainly a laudable goal. Unfortunately, in order to get live scan services, most entities, including the city, charge a fee to offset the cost of providing that service. That fee is in addition to any fee that's charged by DOJ or the Department of Justice. In the case of the volunteers, the Department of Justice has a $0 fee for the state level check. However, our master fee schedule doesn't incorporate that. We have one $10 rolling fee. The South Shore Little League has approached us and asked for assistance in performing the live scan checks. However, they've indicated that the rolling fee would impose a financial burden. I believe that youth programs are a cornerstone of having healthy communities and to deter young persons from being involved in criminal activity. And as we know, particularly in our area, getting volunteers is difficult. So I think any opportunity where we can try to support an organization that has volunteers and really the only thing standing in the way of them performing their duties is getting these live scan checks done. So we're asking that you authorize amending the master fee schedule to waive that rolling fee for volunteers of youth services organizations. We had further clarified in the resolution that the department can restrict appointment slots because of course we wouldn't want to overwhelm the staff. And I believe that the organization, in the case of South Shore Little League, is willing to do that. I mean, I would expect any other organization would be too. The estimated financial impact, and there's a very rough estimate, but would probably be a reduction of up to $2,000 in revenue. However, I believe $2,000 is a very small investment in the community to make things better for our youth. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Councilman Claffey.
Would this apply to all youth organizations such as the soccer program or even the school district?
Yes, the restriction would be that the youth services organization must operate in Lake County. Originally, when I was drafting it, I included City of Clearlake. However, I think we all know that, including my own staff, we have individuals that volunteer all around the lake. And I also know that there's youth that live in Clearlake that benefit from other youth organizations in the county. So the restriction is just within the county of Lake.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, any more comments from staff? If not, open it to the public. Any public comment on this item? Anybody on Zoom, Madam Clerk? Okay, I'm gonna bring it back to the council. I just want to make one comment here. Again, Lakeshore Little League, South Shore Little League provided us all with a letter to approve this item, and because it will help them financially, and I think it also a good idea for the safety of the kids that are part of this program. So,
Mr. Mayor, I think it's a great idea, and I'd like to make a motion
please proceed.
to approve resolution number 2022-60, the resolution of the City Council of the City of Clearlake, amending the master's fee schedule to waive the live scan rolling fee for volunteers of youth services organizations.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Kramer and a second by Councilman Claffey. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we go to our last items. This is the city manager and council member reports. Mr. Flora.
Mr. Mayor, council members, just a few items. I don't know if you saw in the news this week, but the city of Torrance resigned from the League of Cities in protest due to their belief that the League of Cities has been lax in fighting for local control. A lot of this started with the SB9 situation. So very interesting and very strong position by Torrance.
Was it, I believe it 5-0 or
I think it was a unanimous decision. Yeah. The splash pad project is crawling towards completion. If you have a chance to drive past there, all the main pieces of the equipment were installed this week. So it looks really cool. Public Works Director sent me a few videos of they've been testing out the stuff and the buckets working and all that. It's going to be really exciting. There's still a couple of pieces of equipment, some controllers that haven't came in yet that we've been waiting on for a while. That'll come in over the next couple of weeks. So anyway, it's taking forever, but it's getting there.
So are we going to have a heat wave between?
It's probably unlikely that we'll really open it for use by the community this year, but at least it'll be all ready to go in the spring. You're aware of the issues we've had over the last many years with sunflower property. We did, we have tried to continue negotiating with the property owner to resolve the violations on that property, which had not been successful. We did receive an abatement warrant from a judge, I suppose a couple of weeks ago now. Just wanted to update you that the demolition permit was issued today, and it sounds like the contractor expects to begin demolition work on the 28th of this month. And then the final thing, it was actually mentioned
28.
28, yeah. About a possible PSPS event coming up. So I thought we were going to make it through the season without one. There was a few notifications that came out today. We did get a call to dispatch saying that there may be customers impacted in Clearlake, but the latest situation report and the mapping that's been put out by PG&E do not show any customers being impacted in the city. Only 49 total within Lake County. So anyway, these things do seem to evolve quite a bit, but as currently predicted, it would initiate at 6 a.m. on Sunday and extend maybe only a few hours or as far as Monday at 6 a.m. But again, we'll keep the council and the public updated if the situation changes for any of our Clearlake customers, and that's my report.
Hey, Councilman Kramer.
Yes, not too much. Last week I did attend, since Superintendent Slato is here, I might as well mention I attended their special meeting last week with regard to their building program as it applies to the bond measures is what I was sitting there on, but I think it also included other monies. Interesting meeting. That's quite a process, I've got to say, and hopefully we're going to be able to resolve some of the issues. And then after that, along with several with Mayor Slotin, I attended the Woodland and Supervisor Sabache and Superintendent Slato attended the Woodland College event, their 50th anniversary. It had a lot of great speeches and talking about the future. And in fact, I think next Tuesday, it was announced this morning, there'll be a special meeting to discuss the new or applications for a new dean and interim dean Lee encouraged anybody who would want to attend that and had some input to attend it. So I think that's something that we probably should look at it for any. I'm going to go, but I would encourage any of the rest of you to go. And last, we had our Clearlake Community Action Group had our drive-through Oktoberfest event last Saturday. Went off very well, made a couple $1,000, so we were pleased. That's all I have.
Councilwoman Overton.
Okay, well, first off, I'd like to welcome Adeline to her new position. I'm so glad that you're there, and I know you're going to do an awesome job. So today we had our meeting with our area agency board, and they have pretty much approved everything I requested in our grant. So you and I will need to talk and let you know what we've got, which I'm really, really excited that we got some new stuff. So we had our annual hoedown and we did very well. I really appreciate everybody that supported our things. We made about $4,000. And it was a small event, but it was a very successful event. So we really appreciate everybody that donated to that. We have our trunk or treat coming up. So we are still taking donations. I was not, with my ankle, was not able to get out like I normally do and sit at the stores and get donations. So anybody that would like to donate to help purchase candy, because that's always the hardest part. Everybody, we get like 1,000 kids. So, we normally have about, between 2,000 and 2,500 people that show up there. About 1,000 of those are children. Afterwards, we're going to have the movie in the park, Hocus Pocus. So, and there'll be some food and popcorn that they can purchase there. So anybody that'd like to help, they can go on, they can, if they want to have a vehicle or volunteer, they can go online at downtownclearlake.com and fill out an application. And third, we're going to have the Thanksgiving dinner this year. So at the Senior Center on Thanksgiving Day. So also another thing that we could use volunteers and donations for. So that's a community event. Nobody makes any money off of it. It's just for the community to come and a place for people to come and that don't have any place else to go. So, or if you have places, bring your family. Some of them brought families. So last time we had it, we served about 175 people. So, I think it's a good thing for us to do. So, and I believe that's it.
What times are the dinners between?
Thanksgiving?
Yes.
We normally start at 11 o'clock. It's normally 11 to 2.
Hey, Councilman Claffey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last week, I had the pleasure of attending the Tourism Improvement District meeting. Right now, they are trying to gain enough signatures to continue the program for another 10-year term. So I think they're at about a third right now of signatures. I also had the pleasure of joining you, Mr. Mayor, and our colleagues in Lakeport and at the county to talk about some recreational opportunities. It's great seeing partnership between all three agencies, and hopefully we can talk about the rec center and other potential opportunities here in Clear Lake and Lake County moving forward. And then finally, on top of trunk or treat, we have the city Halloween, I believe, is the 31st here at City Hall. Looks like the Goodfellas are also doing something across the street as well, a trunk or treat on the 31st. So it should be a fun weekend in about 2 weeks.
On the 29th, by the way.
Trunk or treat here, the 29th, with the movie on the 29th, and then more candy if your children aren't totally hyped up on the 31st.
I think there's 5 or 6 trunk or treat events this year, so
Yes.
there's plenty of opportunity to get your candy.
Yeah.
To get on a sugar high.
Yeah.
Councilman Kramer has a
I
do-over.
have a do-over, or an addition to, it reminded me on the October 29th, there'll be a Clear Lake Cemetery cleanup. Be a combination between our Clear Lake Rotary and Clear Lake Community Action Group. Anybody who wants to, does not limited to members of either of those groups, however, if you want to come out and help to do some mowing around the cemetery, leaf raking, broken branch removal. That's goes from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock, and it'll be followed by a luncheon at Clear Lake Park, Rusty Park. For anybody's interested.
That's Mayor Purdo.
Yeah, I got nothing. Everybody covered it all, so I have nothing to report.
I also went to the college 50th year thing. I think it's an institution that we should cherish and support any which way we can. I also had now 2 meetings with the Koi Nation, which were quite challenging to a certain degree. But I think we finally have started making some progress. So, and I also went to the meeting that Councilman Claffey was referring to at the Board of Supervisors Chamber for Recreation and Parks Facilities. So that's my report. Any future agenda items? If not, meeting is adjourned to closed session.
5-minute break.
5-minute break. Thank you, Becky.
Thanks, Becky. Please don't steal our fixtures.